Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Let's all rise for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Is our inspirator there? I think I saw Mike Florio.
He is. He's on his way up.
All right, round of applause, please.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guest, Mary. How are you? Good. Summer. Hair gets lighter, skin gets a little darker, water gets warmer, drinks get colder, music gets louder, nights get longer, life gets better. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any announcements? I got a couple, but I'll see if anybody else has any first. So I'd like to welcome our guest Mary back. Thank you for coming back, and hope you will join at some point. I believe the officer training is June 13th. I'll get the dates and the Zoom links and everything to you. I received a message the other day for the incoming officers. I'll do the officer induction on June 22nd. That'll be our last in person, so we'll do it then. And we'll plan accordingly. Not everybody can make it, but we'll do what we can with that. And it'll be a special ceremony. And it'll be fun for sure. Other than that, I don't have any other announcements. I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster, Sylvia Baptiste. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we should have started 5 minutes later. No, not many people are here, Gerald. So this morning, my theme is tip jars. And I come up with these quirky themes when I'm listening to the radio driving to work in the morning, because they always ask these questions. What is your opinion? And people call in, and you should hear some of their opinions. They are funny. So I thought, we'll get your opinion today. The tip jar may have been originated hundreds of years ago. In 1946, editorial in the Life magazine claimed that English taverns used displayed urns or tips that were labeled, and I have one, to ensure promptitude. However, there is no historical evidence that support this claim. The tip jar, also known as a tip cup, is a container, commonly a glass jar, into which customers could put gratuity. The tip jar is usually situated at the point of sale at any business. Although common in many counters around the world, tip jars in food and drink establishments. Now, that kind of started to make sense to me. The restaurants having to tip, tipping your waitress, waiters, because they always made less than minimum wage. So this helped supplement the gap. Today, the tip jar has become a source of controversy. Who do you tip? Should you tip owners of businesses? How about managers? Customers may feel discouraged from tipping at these establishments. They may feel that the tip jar are inappropriate at certain types of establishments, having a tough time talking this morning, such as movie theater concessions counters, dry cleaners, takeout food restaurants, gyms, and locker rooms. Many feel pressured that they are already paying a high cost for their monumental simple services. So the tip jar really started with people throwing in loose change that they had as they were walking out. Then that loose change went into dollars. And today, very digital. They're not leaving it there like I am, but the tip is on every credit card bill now that you see, plus another charge if you use your credit card. So let's talk about giving. And I'm not saying don't tip people. That's not what I'm really saying. People do earn it. But do you tip managers? Do you tip owners of the business hair salons? If the owner is doing your hair, do you tip him or her? How about your dog groomer? Do you leave a tip at the ice cream stand? That was the controversy of the topic of the radio. That why should I tip the guy who's just turning around and filling an ice cream cone? But do you tip your favorite bartender? Of course, in my world, I tip my hairdresser and my favorite bartender. I want my hair to look good next time I go, and I want my drinks to be real good as the night goes on. So think about it. Who should you tip? And I'm going to start with the roles. David, you came in at the right time. You are the word grammarian this morning, David Licata. Morning.
Madam Toastmaster, now that we've had some changes, I have to do the word of the day. I'm the grammarian and the odd master as well. This is my tip cup, seeing how I have to treat. But to give you the idea, I kind of prop this up so you'll understand where the dollar goes. So that's part of it. I'm going to be real strict today, Madam Toastmaster. The word of the day is gratuity. 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 It's a noun. It's a tip given to a waiter, taxi cab driver, etc., and so on. You know the origin of the word tip?
No.
Ha. Another opportunity for me to be the like Norm, or no, like Cliff in Cheers, the bar know-it-all. When coffee became popular in London, they opened a big coffee house. And all the businessmen, instead of going to their jobs, they hung out at this coffee house. And to make sure the waiters got the coffee there in time, there was a box near the door that said tip, to ensure promptness. Tip. Now, soon after the conversation in this coffee house would turn, because it was during the Napoleonic Wars, they would start betting if a shipment of coal was going to make it here or there, a shipment of wheat was going to make it to Spain, etc., and so on. The name of the coffee house was Lloyd's. It evolved into insurance. So it's Lloyd's of London. And in honor of its history, the office boys are not called office boys or junior assistants. They're called waiters. Plenty of information for you today. We hang this up anywhere or just, I'll leave it up there.
Well, we will.
But you gotta use it the proper way today. We're kind of limited.
Uh-oh.
You just can't do this thing.
Gratuity is the word of the day. Okay. Our next job holder, Mark Campos, is our quote master. Mark?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. Before I get into my quotes, I do have an opinion on this matter. I have worked as a server. My wife has worked as a server. So needless to say, we are very generous when it comes to tipping, even when service is a little substandard. But I have to say, I do think it's gone a bit too far. When the point of sale terminal at the Sabres game prompts you to tip for somebody popping the top on your beer, and I realize there's all sorts of inconsistencies that we can point out, but I just had to vent on this very appropriate topic in my book. But two very brief quotes. The first by Marilyn Vaux Savant. I'm not sure if I should know who that is, but on the subject of gratuities, know how and how much to tip people who expect gratuities, even in the case of poor service. And the second quote is by the comedian Jay Moore. And it goes, if a waiter or waitress tells me when a gratuity is included, they automatically get more gratuity. When they hide it, I go with the leg kick. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our just this morning is Dr. Gerald Stevens.
Good morning again, fellow Toastmasters. My terms for tips are a little different here, the way I'm looking at it. Not your traditional gratuity we were talking about. So my jokes will be related to different types of tips, life tips. A tip for younger married men. If your wife walks into the room and asks you what you think of the dress she just bought, don't ask her if it's for Halloween. Might not go well. A Russian health tip. For better digestion, I drink beer. For low blood pressure, I drink red wine. For high blood pressure, cognac. For colds, vodka. And what about water? He was asked. I don't think I've ever had such an illness. And my last jest, a do-it-yourself money tip. Turn an ordinary old sofa into a sofa bed by just forgetting your anniversary. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. That's good. Our next job holder is our quiz master, Beth Banks. Beth?
I have to agree that we give gratuities very well for waitresses, as long as they take care of us. There's only been a few in our lives that we really, okay, sorry, but you got the proverbial $1 bill because you were so terrible. Doesn't happen often, but occasionally. My job this morning is, as quiz master, is to come up with a list of questions for a quiz to give you at the end of the meeting to see if you were all listening carefully. Thank you very much. Thanks.
The next roll holder, Len Thornton, a timer this morning.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I think you all know the drill here, even our newest guest, Mary. My job is to time everybody's speech, be it table topics, evaluations, or prepared speeches. I'll indicate where you are on your time with a green, yellow, or red background, which is visible to both the speakers and the audience here. Madam Toastmaster.
This morning, our general evaluator is Marty Johnston. Marty.
Good morning, Madam Toastmaster Sylvia, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome returning guest, Mary Elizabeth Cavanero. Good morning. As general evaluator, I'll be evaluating the Toastmaster, the evaluators, and the overall tone of the meeting, and I'll report back at the end. And if you'd like, you can leave a tip for me on the table, and I'll pick it up at the end. Little gratuity. And I'll make sure that Sylvia gets it for the donated to the club.
Okay. Thank you, Marty. Jill is our table topics master this morning. Jill, and I don't know, would you like to explain how to use this for Mary? So thank you.
First off, Mary, I don't know if you got familiar with these last week. Did you? Yes, you did. I don't have to explain that. I'm looking at the attendance here and there is a dearth of targets. The only person I saw other than Mary, which are you ready to come up for table topics, Mary? Not yet, okay. I had a feeling, but I thought I would ask, is Nancy Ferry. So Nancy Ferry, you're gonna be first in line, and then I'm gonna start looking for volunteers. All right, Nancy, we've all heard of occasions where someone has left an astronomical tip at a restaurant, especially with the internet nowadays. Find out somebody's left $1,000 tip on a $10 bill, or something like that. Have you ever been tempted to leave more than a larger than expected tip? Or a really low tip for horrible service? Nancy.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm sorry for the lighting, but I'm at work and this is the way it is. I've often left a very good tip for people who have given me wonderful service, or for people I know that are working really hard and not well paid. There was one opportunity I had and to give no tip. But instead of giving no tip, I decided to leave a penny and a note so that she would have a clear indication of her inappropriate behavior. There were several inappropriate things that she did, but the worst was I caught her picking her nose. When she picked the food up off of the counter, just before that, she was picking her nose. I refused to eat my dinner. I asked for another one, but I gave her a penny and I wrote her a little note saying, had you not been picking your nose, your tip would have been bigger. I was with my father and he was terribly, terribly embarrassed for my lack of gratuity at that occasion. He just thought that you should give everybody a wonderful tip. But tips are for outstanding service. And like Sylvia, I always tip my hairdresser well because I do not want to spend the next 6 weeks looking in the mirror and saying, ah! Well, thank you for the opportunity to share this morning, and I will pass with that to the next person.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. Now I'm looking for volunteers. As far as people that are job holders that might be done with their jobs, like say Mike Florio, Mark Campos, Gerald Stevens. Marty is volunteered. Okay, Marty. You work in retail as I once did, but you don't work on the real front ends where people are likely to give a tip. What is the most outrageous place that you have seen one of these tip jars? I mean, we've all seen them with fast food restaurants making at least $15 an hour and that sort of thing, do they really need tip jars? Is there any, what's the most outrageous place you have seen a tip jar?
Thank you, Madam Topics Master. I'm going to use my Toastmaster privilege and change the question from where's the most outrageous place I've seen a tip jar to a snafu, a situation that got all screwed up when I left a tip. I was with my family at the Country Club restaurant. Some of you may know it's in Medina, New York. I had great service, I had great food, great atmosphere, and I left a tip. I left the tip on my debit card, and the tip was almost the same amount of my own meal, believe it or not. Long story short, I left a gratuity, a tip, and I got a phone call a couple days later from Northwest Bank. And they said, Mr. Johnston, I said, yes. They said, I have a question, we think that your account may have been compromised. And I said, how so? And they said, well, we have a few different transactions that are on your account. Can you verify those? And one was for the meal, and one was for the tip, and one was for some $50 delivery. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something that I said, no, I don't accept that third one, that third charge. And I must have said no to the one for the tip for the restaurant also, because it never went through the account. So long story even shorter, I had to drive back to the Medina restaurant, and I actually handed the waitress the tip in an envelope, because when the recording was playing and they said, you accept this tip? They must have thought that I said no for both, that I rejected both, the one that was like a scam on my account and the other one. No, that's why I usually like to pay cash to prevent situations like that. Madam Topics Master, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Do I have another volunteer? Or am
I
I
could do
going
it, Jill,
to
if you want.
actually draft somebody? There's somebody online?
I could do it if you want, Jill.
Yes. Yeah, don't sound so excited, Gerald. All right, Gerald. Do you have a standard percentage that you give at restaurants? Or do you choose your gratuity based on the actual purpose of tips, supposedly, which was originally to ensure proper service, not to make up for poor wages? Gerald.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, for this opportunity today. When it comes to gratuities, I am much like Mark Campos. I would give more if there's better service. I too was a server. I worked a couple different restaurants. I worked actually the Snow Lodge at Yellowstone as a young person, which is pretty cool. So you had all kinds of tourists coming in there. I did, much like Marty, receive, in this case, a tip that was the same price as a meal. It was for breakfast, cheap meal, but they got the same exact tip as the meal cost. So that was pretty cool, I thought. I did end up learning to schmooze a little bit, I will say, as a waiter. So that was helpful, definitely interacting a little bit. Maybe some early Toastmaster skill development possibility. I received an apple for a tip one time at this restaurant. This gentleman was from Washington State, and he had a farm that had a lot of apples on it, apparently, apple trees. He was very proud of this, and for some reason, he decided to give me an apple instead of money. I didn't know what to say. I just took it graciously and moved on my merry way. There are some folks, though, in other countries that are unaware of the American custom tipping. I knew we had a whole table at this restaurant of German folks that came in, and we're talking 15 people, not $1 for a tip because they assumed it was included. And in a lot of restaurants, the bigger parties do include it, but this restaurant did not. So sadly, I was out of luck there. That's the way it goes, I guess, in the world of gratuities. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Gerald. And thank you for volunteering. Thank you, Marty, for volunteering. I have to say, when I was in business, I won't say there was numerous times that I got given tips, but there were several times that somebody would thank you very much for carrying out the bag of feed to their car or that sort of thing. It happened. It was always nicely appreciated, but it sure didn't really help in the long run. I think that's about all I have to say. Oh, word report, please. Matthew goes running up here.
Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, our guest Mary. I'm happy to report that everybody qualified. All three of them used the term gratuity, and you snuck one in as well, but we'll give you credit for that at the end. Thank you.
All right. How about timers report, Len?
Madam Topic Master, unfortunately, Marty went a little bit over. He couldn't wrap it up in time, speaking 2:22, which is beyond the buffer. But Nancy and Gerald qualified, and you'll see an online poll for that momentarily. Madam Topic Master.
Thank you, everybody, for participating in table topics and whatever tips you want to leave. I guess that's okay. Thanks, Sylvia.
Have just a little bit of housekeeping this morning. I see that Thomas didn't make it on Zoom or in person, so I asked Mike Florio to fill in for Les speech to be the evaluator. And I'm going to start with our first evaluator, Michael Licata, who's evaluating our speaker, Carol Ann, this morning.
Good morning, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest Mary this morning. Carol Ann is speaking out of the Presentation Mastery Pathways. This is the vocal variety speech. The purpose of the speech project is to practice vocal variety to enhance the speech. Mr. Timer, the time is 5 to 7 minutes, and I believe you have her title, correct?
I do have her title. Carol Ann, this speech this morning is, it's spring. I'm sorry, it's June. It's summer. It's June. Carol Ann.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guest Mary. It's June. June is a month named for the Roman goddess Juno, who is the goddess of marriage and childbirth. Flag Day, Father's Day, and Juneteenth are holidays celebrated this month. June is a special month for me. I met Dan, who has been my husband for almost 46 years, in June of 1972. Our middle daughter, Tara, and her husband will be celebrating 16 years of marriage on June 23rd. And we have 4 grandchildren, 3 girls, just 1 boy, and he was born in June. Many historical events have taken place in June. King John signed the Magna Carta, which is a foundation for modern democracies, in June of 1215. Then we're jumping ahead a few centuries. June of 1844, the YMCA was founded in London. 1815, Napoleon met his Waterloo. 1876, Custer had his last stand. Now to the 20th century. Archduke Francis Ferdinand and his wife were assassinated in Sarajevo, Austria. And this was an event that precipitated World War I. However, it was in June of 1919 that the Treaty of Versailles ended World War I. There was a rather famous or infamous wedding in June of 1937 when Edward VIII married American divorcee Wallis Simpson, and he abdicated the British throne. D-Day. Everyone is usually familiar with the date, June 6th, 1944, which was the largest amphibious invasion ever launched. And when the troops landed on the beaches, Omaha Beach in Normandy, France. If any of you have seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, Spielberg directed the first part of the movie, and it was very graphic and horrific as to what really happened that day. In 1950, month of June, the Korean conflict started. In 1963, cosmonaut from Russia, Valentina Tereshkova, was the first woman in space. And it was 20 years before our American astronaut, Sally Ride, was our first woman in space. June 1968, news from LA. Robert F. Kennedy has been shot and of course later died. At that time, I was in nursing school doing my clinical rotation in med-surg at Mount St. Mary's, and we had a patient that we knew quite well. She was a frequent flyer, and we were taking care of her the day that the funeral was telecast, and every now and then she'd run out in the hall and she'd say, "Oh, Ethel's coming in. You want to see it?" And Teddy's speaking. The 26th Amendment was ratified in 1971. This was the amendment that gave 18-year-olds the right to vote. And I know there had always been discussion when we were in high school. If you can fight for your country, like in places like Vietnam, you should be able to vote for your leaders. Watergate. 1972. Actually, it happened the same weekend that I met my husband. And this was where there was a break-in at the Watergate Hotel in Washington, and former some former FBI and CIA agents were actually involved in it. They tapped phone lines, stole some documents from, said the Democratic Party office. And there were 69 people indicted, 48 people convicted. And as we were to find out, President Nixon was very involved in the cover-up. So, and he ended up resigning. Thinking of the dark, cold days of winter, who can't be thankful for the long days of June? And they go on and keep getting longer until the summer solstice on June 21st, and then we start downhill. But hopefully everyone will have a good June this year. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol. Our second evaluator, Tracy, will be evaluating Jackie Kenny. Tracy?
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Today, Jackie will be speaking out of the Connect with Storytelling manual. She's to use any type of story, whether it be personal, well-known fiction, or something of her own creation. We're to listen for a well-organized speech that is a story that includes a story. Her title is Family Secrets. Sorry, However, do you guys remember the movie Steel Magnolias when Dolly Parton says, if you have something juicy to say, come sit by me? We're going to listen to Family Secrets by Jackie Kenny. 5 to 7 minutes. Sorry, I had to do that. I am a keeper of secrets. Thank you, Madam Evaluator. It is with, I don't know, I don't know quite how to describe it, but I am breaking a trust that I've held for more than 50 years. When family members tell you secrets, sometimes you can't ever share them. But in this case, things came to light eventually. More than 50 years ago, when Kevin and I had come home from a sojourn in Norfolk, Virginia, he was in the Navy, and we're between stations. We stayed at my in-laws for a while until he moved on to the next place he had to be. And one afternoon, my younger sister-in-law and I were sitting in the living room chatting. I was considering revealing to her that I thought I might be pregnant, but before I could open my mouth, she opened hers and told me that she was pregnant. And it wasn't happy news as far as she was concerned. She was at the time in her first year of college. And this was not something that she expected or planned for. So she was very upset and didn't want to tell her parents, but I convinced her that that was what had to happen next. And there was a big hullabaloo for a few days. And then she went off to stay with one of her older brothers in Indiana, where she had the child that she then gave up for adoption. It was a very tough time for everyone in the family. But lo and behold, 45 years later, she called me on the phone one day and said, Jack, I got this envelope from the court in Indiana, and I haven't opened it yet because I know what it is. It was a request from the child she had given up for adoption to connect and reveal her identity. And that's what happened. My sister-in-law went to Indianapolis and had a wonderful, heartwarming meeting with someone who was her daughter, who had been raised by two really wonderful people. And I know that's true because I've met this young woman and had a few chances to spend time with her, and she's quite amazing. And in fact, she wrote a blog about her meeting with her birth mother. She called it Coming Full Circle, a 45-year reunion. She's become a very valued part of the family and someone that it is a delight to know. We share political opinions and viewpoints on certain things. So I've enjoyed getting to know her and becoming Aunt Jackie to her, as well as to my sister-in-law's two boys. They have a sister now, and she's been a wonderful, delightful part of their life as well. The first time I met her in person, she gave me a hug and told me how sorry she was that she never got to meet her Uncle Kevin. If anybody's interested in doing a blog as their project in, I believe it's level 5 in most of the paths, you might want to read this because she's a master class in how to express yourself and what to do with feelings and confusion and all the things that are stirred up when the past comes back. We never got to introduce her to her natural grandparents, but she had grandparents and a dad who was a Vietnam veteran and went through a lot of physical things, a mom who was a wonderful, amazing person. And she learned so much about herself because she was missing a part. And this doesn't happen with everyone who's adopted. And it doesn't always turn out to be a nice fairy tale ending. But coming around to learn things about your roots and what made you the person you are, because it's not all nurture, it's nature too. She's a tiny, bubbly person. And my sister-in-law is a tiny, bubbly person. And the mom who raised Jennifer was not that kind of woman at all. But she gave her so much that made her the person that she is. It's been such a pleasure to get to know this young woman and to have her be part of our lives. So I hope that all of you can learn a little bit more about your past and your future by learning more about some of the people in your life that you might get to know in different ways. It's a gratuitous event to learn what things kind of can become from this. Her birth father did not want to meet her, and he passed away a few years ago. She wanted to know more about him, so she asked my sister-in-law to invite her and some of the friends that he had when he was young for a party so that she could talk to them and hear stories about him and get to know him a little bit even though he didn't want to be part of her life. I know, David, it's hard to believe that someone wouldn't want to know a child when they could, but that's what happened. I hope all of you enjoyed hearing this story and learning a little bit more about family secrets. I had to keep that secret for a very long time, and it was very difficult not to share it with anyone, but I never did. Kevin and I knew about it, and we kind of supported her through all of this and through the subsequent events in her life. So hopefully, if you have any family secrets in your life, find a way to share them and warm your heart with those kind of stories. Thank you, Madam Postmaster.
So our next evaluator, Mike Florio, I asked on the whim, will be evaluating Les Robinson. And Les' speech is 18 to 22 minutes, just to give you a heads up. And Mike.
Thank you. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guest. Thanks for that. I was going to say, wow, that it would be 5 to 7 minutes normally. All I have, I'm kind of filling in, well, I am filling in for Tom. So all I have is the speech right now, Les is his title. So if you're ready, Les, how to ask correct financial questions to empower yourself. Les Robinson. You're welcome.
I'm ready. Thank you, Mike. How to ask the correct financial questions to empower yourself. And today I'm here speaking at the University Express in Erie County. And the important thing in your financial decisions is asking the correct question. Because if you ask the correct question and get the correct answer, you will not lose your money. If you ask the incorrect question, you could be given the incorrect information, which could cause you to lose all of your money. A little background information. My name is Les Robinson. I have been doing insurance for over the past 25 years. I've done long-term care planning over the past 25 years. I have my CLTC, Special Care Planner. I have my IRMA designation, license in multiple states, and I am a fiduciary. I also do over 30 seminars. I also wrote this book, How to Protect Your Money for Medicaid. In 2019, my wife had back surgery. After back surgery, she could only move her fingers and her toes. I got her into a rehab. That night, I went home, sat on the back porch, and realized that a financial behavior talk that my wife and I had talked was very important, and we avoided detachment. The next day, when I saw my wife, I said everything was good. And we continued on, and that was a win-win. But the big thing about that with my wife was that we knew the correct questions to ask, which saved us lots of money. Now, why is it important to ask the correct question? I try to take stories which I have learned around me to bring to people, because that helps to bring a mind bridge to connect the topic. My wife was looking at a car recently, and she went out, looked at it. They gave her a loan interest rate of 9.99, really bad trade-in, overpriced. And then I arrived and I got the loan rate down to 5.25, probably knocked $130 off the car payment. Asked if it had a towing package. He said yes, went through the whole thing. Now, when you think of a towing package, you think that it's got the brakes, all of the stuff, and the trailer hitch. The truck came through for final inspection. I walked around and I looked at the salesperson. I said, there is no trailer hitch. He goes, but there's a towing package. And I asked the difference. I said, what's the difference between a towing package with a hitch or without a hitch? And he said, well, that's a different option. Okay, where I'm going with this is, you ask a question and you think of towing package, you think of a hitch and all of that, but actually it's missing the hitch. And where that comes into when you ask the correct financial question is you may be asking the correct question and not getting the full answer, which can cost all of you all of your money. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about generally empowering questions. Okay, they can have two answers. And this is what it is that when you ask one of these questions, you're looking for the correct answer, not the overview answer. Number one, do you invest in this type of security? That's a good question to ask the advisor. That's a direct question. What is the risk level? You know, what do I have here to risk? Understanding the beta level of the investment. If the person tells you it's got a beta of 0.5, that's a relatively safe. If he tells you it's got a beta of 18 or 19, that's like going to the casino. Remember, the higher the beta, the higher the risk. Do I have a guaranteed return? Okay. And on this question, is there's very few items that guarantee a return. To know that, that's very important to know. What is my maximum loss for the security or the investment? That's another thing, is what is the maximum loss? They sit there and say, well, you know, it could be this or this. You know, what is the maximum amount I can lose? Well, if I put 5,000 in, is the maximum I can lose 5, or could it be 6? Okay. What is the opportunity cost? And people say, well, what does opportunity cost mean? Well, let's say you purchase something and you can't get that money out for 30 years. An example, you purchase a CD, a 30-year CD that pays 1%. 3 years ago, you thought that was a great rate, but you can't get that money out for 30 years. And now rates are 5 or 6. So now you've lost 4 or 5%. So that is the opportunity cost. Next one is a big one. How do I avoid probate? And people say, what do you mean? How do I avoid probate? Most investments, insurance, banking tools have the ability to put a beneficiary on there. You want to make sure you have the ability to do that. Okay. And what does my projection look at age 100? Okay. If I live to 100, how's my retirement? How's everything look at age 100? These are important questions to ask. Another thing, what are the expenses involved in this investment? That's another important question, because sometimes there may be a lot of hidden charges that you're not aware of. Another big one is, what will my taxes increase? And we're going to touch about a few things that you can make one decision and it cost you an extra 30 to 40% of that money. That's a very important question. Is this in my area of risk? You know, when you talk to the advisor, you know, this is my risk tolerance level. Does this fit my tolerance? What type of life insurance policy? And this is very important. There's permanent, and there's term. And I have done reviews with people that have sworn up and down that they have a permanent insurance, and after review, finding out they have term insurance. So what you want to do is, when you're purchasing the insurance, is the premium going to stay level for the life of the product, or is it going to go up? It's a very important question to ask. Next one is, when will my policy be paid up? Now, sometimes some of the whole life or universal, you have to continuously pay on. Another one is, what is my cash value at 65 or at 100? You have to also look at it as, if the cost goes up internally, your cash value goes down. Next one is, how many ADLs do I need to turn on my policy? If you've got a policy prior to 2007, it might be 6 out of 6, 3 out of 6, or after 2007, 2 out of 6. And your ADLs are bathing, eating, transferring, continence, and eating. Also, note what type of rider you have on your policy for long-term care. If you have one that is a temporary, you need to only be incapacitated for a minimum of 90 days, or if it's permanent, it has to be forever. So these are important questions, because you can assume one area that you're going to go down and your information is totally different, and it destroys your whole financial picture. That's why educating yourself helps empower yourself, because really simple is, you have X amount of money to make it through retirement. If you are given the wrong information, you think it is the correct information, it could cost you all of your money in retirement. Now, what you want to do is most retirements go like this, and they come down like that. You don't want your retirement to go like this and then crash and lose all of your money. Now, the stuff that can affect your lifestyle is inflation. And people say, well, how does inflation? Well, they say, well, my coffee's gone up, my eggs have gone up. Let's look at it at a real point of inflation. You go out and get one of those brand new shiny CD rates at 4%. You think, wow, that's a great rate. But inflation is at 8%. So take the 4 minus the 8. That makes your money is going backwards at 4%. Your purchasing power is going down. Okay. Next one is, how does an effect in the downturn in the market affect my retirement? And where this comes into play, if you're using your retirement as a subsidy in your income, is you're going to pull more out of principal and you're going to make it get smaller quicker. Okay. Once again, taxes, very important. What is the tax effect? And I'm going to repeat this many times through this presentation, is why taxes, because if you make a wrong mistake, it can cost you a lot extra money. And the other thing is your longevity risk. Okay. If you live too long, you may outlive your money, and you don't want to do that. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, you have X amount of money. Okay. And you sit there with your advisor and they do their Monte Carlo where they run through a ton of scenarios and they say, look, you have a 92% chance of having a success. You can pull that $50,000 out each year for the rest of your life, and life is good. Okay. But if you factor in an unexpected event, downturn in the market, a long-term care event, I could have what you call the goose that lays the golden egg. The amount of money you have produces an egg, and you want that egg as big as possible. The more of the principal you take, the smaller your egg becomes. And that's what you want to realize. It's a very important thing, is when you take money out of your portfolio, what is the long-term effect on my income, my lifestyle? I mean, certain times you have to take money out of your portfolio because of emergencies. That's a total horse of a total different color. But if you're sitting there and say, hey, I really want to buy that shiny new item, and that's $106,000, what are the taxes? What's going to affect my income? These are things that people need to understand. Because if you don't understand it, okay, what's going to happen is it's going to affect your retirement and your taxes. Now, how many in this room has heard of IRMA? IRMA is a friend you never want to meet, okay? IRMA has been around for about a little over 10 years, and what it is the surcharge on Part B and Part D of your Medicare, okay? And what happens, and these are where common mistakes happen, where you decide that you want to go out and buy that shiny new item, and you then move through the levels of IRMA, and your $170 per person for your Medicare Part B and your drug on Part D turns in for you and your spouse to be about $900 each. And you're like, wow, now I'm paying $1,800 a month in additional healthcare costs. And that's over the next 12 months. Number 2 is it's going to increase your tax rate. And number 3, it's also going to increase your Social Security tax rate. So that money that you're pulling out for that event could have a ton of costs, or you might have to go back into your portfolio and to get additional money out. And once again, you're shrinking your portfolio. Now, one of the things we look at people when they want to buy the shiny new item, and they tend to be the sports car, or the RV, or the trip of a lifetime, is what you want to do is say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Advisor, I want to take X amount of money out. Is that going to generate an IRMA event? Number 1, if your advisor says, I have no idea what an IRMA event is, you need to find a new advisor. That's number 1. Number 2, If the advisor says yes, and they run the simple little program, they type it out and they say, oh my gosh, this is going to cost you an additional 20,000 in health insurance. It's going to be an additional 15,000 in taxes. So this $100,000 you're pulling out is going to generate an additional $35,000 that you're going to pay. Now, very simple is number one, do I want to purchase that item or not? Number two, maybe I want to finance that item. So I sit and I decide that I will finance that item over the next 5 years. Now, by financing it, I have not developed an IRMA event. I have not increased my health care costs. I have not increased my taxes, nor is my Social Security taxes going up. This is just an example, but this is how you have to ask the question. You have to take the step back, because the event you do here can cost you more money here, which will bring your total assets down. So it's very important to understand an IRMA event, okay? And when you get the letter from Social Security, IRMA becomes your new best friend for 12 months. Now, the other thing with IRMA is you can review your taxes. You can have a life-changing event, which you can amend the IRMA event. But if you do the other road to say, I have a tax problem, then you're saying that your IRS taxes have been misfiled. And that can trigger a lot of other problems you don't want to. So before you appeal the IRMA event, you want to make sure that your tax return was done correct, check the life events, review everything. And once everything, you have the ability to appeal with a life event, do it. If you find out your accountant filed the wrong tax return, do it. Otherwise, you're stuck with an IRMA event, which can really, for the next 12 months, affect your life. Now, next thing is understanding the correct tool in the toolbox. And this is where it comes into a lot of decisions that are made that totally drive your entire retirement off the cliff. Now, I've had people that I've been doing my classes for over the past 20 years. Very simple, very easy. They have left my class and have driven to the attorney's office, literally driven to the attorney's office, and told them they needed an estate plan. And they got an estate plan. And they spent lots of money. And then many years later, they went to the nursing home figuring, hey, I'm good. And they're writing a check. So when you're deciding now what tool you're going to use for your retirement, make sure you have the right tool. Wrong tool can cause you a lot of money. Now, I've developed a process in the long-term care. Now, number one, fall prevention is not an educational class that anyone has. The University Express has a fall prevention class. And Mark over here, after this, you can sign up with the University Express to take the fall prevention. This is nothing about the correct class education. What this is fall prevention can save you a lot of money. Very simple, very easy. But the important thing is to understand Medicaid. There's a 5-year look back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you don't understand that one, it's not a good thing to know, because people think that they can give money away in 3 years. Everyone is subject to the 5-year look back. Now, legal, I'm not a lawyer and I cannot give you legal advice. But these are the big things that have really destroyed people's finances. I've gone online and I have purchased a power of attorney and I got it for $50. You come to find out that the power of attorney you have is incorrect and it's now cost you $200,000. So if you get a power of attorney, you want to go to the attorney, and the attorney, you're going to say, will this be able to transfer the money? Will I be able to act as a financial person? Does it have the statutory gift writer? It's a redone policy attorney. That's the one you want. Anything else will cost you lots of money. Next one is the people I joked about that left my class. Okay. If you go to an attorney, this is the important question. Are you a Medicaid attorney? Yes or no? If they say, well, no, you do not want that attorney because that attorney is not trained in Medicaid protection. People have spent tens of thousands of dollars going to an estate attorney. And once again, I am not an attorney, and they have purchased a revocable trust. Revocable trust do not protect you from Medicaid. Okay. That's number one. Number two is They do not protect you from Medicaid. An irrevocable trust does. And that irrevocable trust has to be in place for 5 years. Next important question is my RMDs, when I have Medicaid fill out an application, your RMDs increase by a factor of 4, which can increase more taxes. Okay, very important to understand. People don't understand that when they fill out the Medicaid application, that it can cost them more money. Next one, is my house set up for care? And the big correct question is, can I fit a wheelchair through the door? And a lot of people realize that they don't know. So you need to do that. And the next one is, I have put my house into an irrevocable trust and it's been over 5 years. Great. My question to you is, if you go into a nursing home, do you have the ability to sell your house or not sell your house? And people that have set up their irrevocable trust where they keep the house until they pass away end up losing their house to a tax sale. Okay. So these are all important questions that you need to ask Empower. Now, today, we're doing a free Amazon ebook giveaway. And basically what you do is you go to my website, click on the book, get the free ebook, and give the loaner. And what that will do is we'll develop financial behavior and avoid detachment, which those are 2 other things that, if incorrectly handled, can have you lose all your money. So now I will take questions. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for Les? Just out of
What's
curiosity.
your website, Les?
Oh, my website is lesltc.com. This is normally a 1-hour speech, but I condensed it down to about 22 minutes. And I'm giving it tomorrow.
Great job. Okay. Timers report. Len, how did the 3 speakers do?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Carol Ann spoke for 638. She qualified. Les spoke for 1924. He qualified. Jackie went a little bit long, was sharing her story with us. I thought she was going to wrap it up in time, and then she started on a new track there. We're glad you shared that with us, but you did go over at 8:24, Jackie. So eligible people are Carol Ann and Les. The online poll will be up shortly. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. So our 2 speakers that qualify will be, I'm sorry, Carol Ann and Les. Now we're going to go back to our evaluators. Mike Licata, the very first one, would you give us your evaluation of Carol Ann's speech?
Thank you again, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests this morning. Carol Ann, I thought you did a great job on your speech this morning. I thought that you did a very, very well organized, very well prepared speech. And it was one of those speeches that helps you build your tools in your Toastmasters toolbox. Now, the evaluation form was very narrow when it came to told me to just evaluate the vocal variety. And vocal variety is one of those experiences and experienced speeches and Toastmasters that it takes many, many years to get used to. It takes many, many tries to do well. And it is one of those things where you're going to grow as a Toastmaster and your vocal variety is only going to get better as your speeches go forward. I thought that you did a good job it was a well-researched speech. You did a great job bringing your own personal experiences into the speech. I did not really. I'm glad that you have so many fond memories of June. For me, June was always a different month because it usually meant the end of school, which was also a ray of hope, but it was also much of a slog because as I got older in school, the work got less and less, and finding purpose when I attended school always became much harder in the month of June. So to give you a lot of credit in giving this speech, it had a good beginning, a good middle, and a good end that didn't feel rushed. I know that when we're giving our speeches, as soon as we see that green light, there's a sense of relief and we feel like we have to hurry up and finish, but you took your time this morning. You did a really, really nice job of wrapping it up without feeling rushed. Local variety is one of the things that can teach us to control the pace and tone of the speech. So that is some of the things I want you to work on as you go forward in your presentation mastery pathway. Is that vocal variety is a very important part of presentation, but just understand that you can use vocal variety to control the tone and control the pace of the speech. And I want to thank you for giving the speech this morning. And I want to wish you good luck on your path going forward. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. Our next evaluator, Tracy, will be evaluating Jackie. Tracy.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Family secrets. And did Jackie have a family secret? That's how she built anticipation into her story. She had a secret herself, but her sister-in-law had a bigger secret, and she had to keep her secret in. She also created emotion in her story. I'm an emotional person anyway, so here I am tearing up over in the corner over there. But in her story, she was able to bring that emotion in and draw that out of us. Jackie, because she's our Toastmasters mother, she's also the mother in her family. So she has to keep these things and guide people along. And apparently her sister-in-law trusted her the most. One of the things I would have done is have a stronger ending. This was kind of a dark secret, but there was a really bright light at the end of the story. And I would have stressed more as like, okay, there was this dark secret, but look at all the joy it brought to us in the end. We have this new member in our family and how great she is and the joy she brought to her family. Would have like highlighted that a little bit more. And maybe I would have created a lot more drama in the thing. And this is not like Jackie because she's the honorable person. It would not disrespect anybody, family especially. But you don't have to tell in a story. I learned this from Dave Licata. It doesn't all have to be true. Put in those extra details to make it more deeper, darker, add a lot more to it. She didn't come in time, and she's a DTM, and she should have come in time. However, because she's a DTM, she did a fantastic job with this story. I really enjoyed it. It was something I wanted to sit down. It was a juicy story that I wanted to sit and listen to, and I enjoyed it. It was a good 5 minutes for me here at Toastmasters. So thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Our third evaluator, Mike Florio, will be evaluating Les. And I know he has his job cut out for him for this one. Here you go, Mike.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. There's a lot to unpack in this speech right here with Les. 17 minutes. I don't know if I've ever done an evaluation on a 17-minute speech before, but we'll do that. less 25 years of experience. That's huge. And you can see that in your speech that you have 25 years of experience. I enjoyed the speech. I like financial education. I like learning about it. I like teaching it to people, letting them learn. So I was drawing in whatever I could. I think one thing that you have to be careful of when you're doing a speech like that is that you've got a lot of jargon involved. So you're talking with people that might not be experts, that's for sure. So when you're talking about beta, when you're talking about ADLs, things of that nature, a lot of people are probably sitting there wondering, what the heck's Les talking about here? So I guess what I would say, Les, what you would want to do is that you would maybe take 3 or 4 of these major items and expand on them. Let us know what ERMA is an acronym for, because I'm sure it is for something, and that's valuable. And I'm not an expert myself either, but I like to know about these, and some of these are so new that I never even heard of them before. So to expand on those, I think a fellow Toastmaster told me, she said, Margot, do about 3 or 4 things, expand on them, repeat them, and get out of there. Now you're talking about 17 minutes of a speech, so it takes a little while. A couple other things too. I think all we saw was a headshot in the beginning right away, and it was kind of dark, and all we could see were really the tips of your fingers. But all in all, you gave a lot of really excellent information. I know you know your stuff, and you gave the website, and I think people probably should go to there and even expand on it even more. So thank you very much for the speech. We all really appreciate it.
Now, can we have our last timers report, Lynn?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm pleased to report all 3 of our evaluators did qualify this morning. Mike spoke for 239, Tracy 217, and Mike Florio at 240. An online poll will be up shortly. Madam Toastmaster.
So please cast your votes for Mike, and Tracy. Mike, and Tracy. Sounds like a band here. So now I'm going to go back to our general evaluator, Marty. Tell us your thoughts and your evaluation on the evaluators, please.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster Sylvia. At this point in time, as Sylvia said, I'll be evaluating the Toastmaster and the evaluators. I'd like to start off with Sylvia. Excellent job as Toastmaster today. Had a wonderful theme about the tip jar. You had a nice prop. You started on time. You filled in the roles in a fine manner. I actually got a phone call last night and I returned it promptly. And I enjoyed actually getting a phone call versus an email or a text, because there are a lot of times when that phone call just adds that personal touch. And I know what it's like to be short a couple people for roll holders. So I definitely enjoyed getting the phone call, and it prompted me to react to fill the role for the general evaluator today for today's meeting. You have a nice program, nice agenda, very easy to read. And you did a fine job protecting the lectern. I know sometimes we talk about protecting the lectern and making sure that when we change the roles, we change control to the person that's going to be presenting or speaking, and you did that in a fine manner. Overall, well done, Sylvia. Thank you. Moving into our evaluators this morning. When I started listening to the evaluators and Sylvia introducing them, I made myself a little spreadsheet, and on my spreadsheet, I wrote helpful, constructive, and ways to improve. And each of our evaluators did that. They gave helpful, constructive, and showed way to improvement. And those are the keys for the speaker to learn. Starting off with Mike Licata, you gave Carol Ann some helpful, and you actually explained how to improve. You talked about vocal variety and how that could add to her speech. Well done. At Tracy, you pointed out some good things with Jackie. I showed her ways to improve. You gave her some examples. Mike Florio, you also gave Les Robinson some ways to improve his speech. And I definitely agree that with a longer speech, Mike, you're right on point with that. You said 3 to 4 points. And for that longer speech, he could have probably given like 4 to 5 main points, but for a 5 to 7, you're right on the money. 5 to 7 minute speech is definitely 3 minutes, three main points is key. So you definitely, all evaluators gave some nice feedback, helpful, constructive, and showed way to improvement. Well done. Thank you for everyone participating this morning. And at this point, I would like to move into the rest of the reports, the remainder. You see here we have. Let's start with Beth Banks with our quiz master. Beth. How well did we listen, teacher? Welcome, Beth Banks.
It'll fall out, I'm sure. That's okay. I'll try to catch it. So my first question in our quiz today, what was the last thing that Sylvia put in the tip jar? Good job. What was Carol Ann's goal to practice? Ooh, good job. Yes, Michael. Vocal variety. Where did the name June come from?
Do you know?
Roman goddess, yes.
Yes.
Name one important event that happened in June from Carol's speech. That's one. That's it. She met her husband. Assassination, yes. So we're doing good. Yes. What is the longest day of the year?
And 21st?
Very good. And what was Jackie's family secret? Pregnancy, yes. What could happen if you don't ask the correct question? Lose all your money, yes. What surprised Les when he and his wife were buying a truck? Towing package didn't include the trailer hitch, yes. The higher the beta, the higher the risk. Oh, you guys are good listeners today. And what should you ask your attorney? If they're a Medicaid attorney, very good. And those are my questions for today. Thank you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Beth. Next, I'd like to hear from Dave Licata, our WAG master, our word and grammarian. Dave Licata, welcome. Hey, David.
This is terrific when you combine the 3 jobs. And we've always encouraged AM Lockport to bring up the word master last, so people have the opportunity to get credit for using the word. But more importantly, it means I get the last word. All right, now, the word of the day, Mark Campos, he used it. Mark was free of any grammatical errors and any ahs. Dr. Gerald Stevens used the word. He also gets off scot-free. Beth Banks as well. The flawless Len Thornton, except he didn't use the word, but other than that, he was flawless. Marty Johnson used the word twice throughout today's meeting. Nancy Ferry used the word once. And everybody, the people that had the opportunity to speak today did a great job. And I feel terrible because I just have to mention that Nancy was guilty of using the word "and" as a connector, but that's really small. And of course, we can't apologize in Toastmasters. We just have to do our duty. Jill used it twice. Mike Licata did not use the word of the day, but he did use very, very, very 3 times, and really, really twice, which is kind of funny because he really doesn't use those words at home. Carol Ann Halstead had more than 5 ahs, but she had far, far less than she's ever had in the past. And her grammar, that was fine as well. Tracy Farrell did not use the word of the day, but she was scot-free again on the other indiscretions. Jackie Kennedy snuck it in, gratuitous. And once again, I'd be on the teeny, weeny small thing. Because Father Toner, when he was directing plays back at DeSales so long ago, and we would have adult content in some plays, and we were high school students. So you couldn't use that word for fecal material. So we would change it to stuff. So you are an incredible professional, hardworking, polished individual, Mike. But we want you to avoid the word stuff. This is a small thing, but it's just going to make you better. Les Robinson was a beautiful illustration of speak what you know. When you're up here, talk about what you work with every day, which enabled him to avoid any grammatical errors. But to be teeny weeny small again, less. If you take the phrase okay out of your speech tomorrow when you're going to do a whole hour, if you can leave the word okay in the car, because you used it 7 times, you will sound like the true professional that you are, Les. And we all know how hard you work. You published a book. So if you use the word okay, you might come off more like a storm door salesman or used car salesman. That's it for today. That's my report.
Thank you, David. That concludes all of our reports. I would like to call up Sylvia to help with the awards. Sylvia, thank you. All set.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Tracy had to leave early and she was our best evaluator this morning. Yep. Table topics, Gerald Stevens, and I think he left early. Nope, he's right in there. There you go, Gerald. And our best speaker this morning is Carol Ann. Yay, Carol Ann. Your well-earned ribbon. Great job. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 8, 3, 5. Oh. And I won. So I want, and I'm going to donate it back to the organization here so that when we return in September, we'll have coffee. Okay, that is it for our meeting. We'll see everyone next week. Who's Toastmasters next week? Do we know? Jackie is. She has
Jackie is
nothing.
Toastmaster,
She
Marty,
does
Jonathan.
not have a theme yet. She'll be working on that this week.
Yes.
And Beth has something. Go ahead.
I'll wait till the recording. Stop. Okay.